If you haven't heard the name Brooke Eby, she's someone you won't easily forget. At just 33 years old, Brooke was diagnosed with the neurodegenerative disease ALS. The typical prognosis is 2 to 5 years for ALS patients, but what sets Brooke apart is what she's done following her diagnosis. She's taken to social media to raise awareness about the disease and has since inspired people all over the world with her resilience and positivity. We're chatting with Brooke about her unshakable strength and more. This is Advocate Now. Well, Brooke, you are a passionate ALS advocate. You were diagnosed with the disease this past March at the age of 33. And for those who aren't familiar, ALS is also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease, and it's often difficult to diagnose it. It took over 4 years for you to receive a diagnosis following your premonition that just something felt off. So what was that period of time like for you between feeling like something was wrong and then finally being diagnosed?
It was a rough 4 years. So for me, it started in 2018. I was living in New York City, working at a big tech job, and I was walking to one of our conferences, and I just sort of felt like I was limping out of nowhere. Like it really did feel like it started one morning. And one of my colleagues noticed too. She was like, "Yeah, you seem to be walking a little bit slower." And so I quickly ran to my sister, who's a doctor, and I was like, "I think I'm walking differently." And she agreed. So we started the entire diagnosis process just after that one day. And I mean, I had every test you could imagine. It started with like MRIs. People were hoping that it was, I tweaked my back or I like pinched a nerve. Then it led into more neurology. And like you said, it's very hard to diagnose. So I certainly don't blame anyone who was involved, because my progression just wasn't what you typically picture with ALS. It's typically a very quick moving disease. And so for me, having a limp for 4 years just didn't signal ALS to most neurologists. But finally, right at the 4-year mark, I started noticing issues with my other foot too, which showed that it was progressing. It showed it wasn't just, a one-off issue with one foot. And once I had that progression, I went back to the neurologist and they were able to officially diagnose me.
I can only imagine the fear and the shock that you must have felt following your diagnosis. What were some of the things running through your mind during that time?
Shock is the best word for it, because in the 4 years leading up to it, it was always sort of in the back of my head. ALS was brought up probably 2 years into that 4-year period, and it never really left my mind. I tried to put it out of my mind, but it didn't, it was still always an option. And so once I was officially diagnosed, the shock took over for probably 2 to 3 months. I told a couple people close to me. I told my family, not without me sobbing throughout that entire process. I could never talk about it in the early days. So yeah, I was in complete shock. I was just trying to escape. So I was, I crawled into bed. I ate as much chocolate as I could. I read probably a book a day. And then 2 to 3 months later, I think I was like, okay, maybe it's, not so bad that it has a name to it, because the last 4 years I'd been living with just this 1 in a million thing that I couldn't relate to anyone or connect to anyone about.
What's so incredible is that it really didn't take long for you to completely shift your perspective. I mean, within months, you created a TikTok to raise awareness for ALS, showing people what it's really like living with the illness. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I just hit my 1-year TikTok anniversary. I'm not sure how people celebrate those, but I just hit mine. Yeah, I think 2 to 3 months is probably shorter than most, but I had this kind of epiphany moment where I had to go to a friend's wedding, and I was a bridesmaid, so I actually had to go. I mean, she probably wouldn't have faulted me if I didn't, but I wanted to be there. It was one of my closest friends from college, and I had to show up using a walker. So I was like, all these college friends I hadn't seen in, some of them 10 years. The last time I'd seen them, I was active and, had all my life together, it seemed like. And now I was showing up in a bridesmaid's dress while using a walker. It wasn't my favorite moment. But as we were walking in, one of my best friends was there too. And I turned to her and I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to go. Let's just leave because everyone's going to be staring at me. And she was like, well, what if we just make it fun? Like, who cares? Let's just try to make a fun night out of it. And I was like, I'm going to try my best. And then probably like an hour later, we had the bride limboing under my walker. I was giving her walker rides all over the dance floor. Like, I think my friend's reaction just kind of flipped it, where I was like, okay, I mean, maybe eyes are going to be on me, mostly the bride, but like, even if people look at me funny, let's just try to make a fun moment out of it and try to make it memorable. And after that, I was like, okay, if I'm able to laugh at myself in this type of situation and other people were joining in, like no one was saying like, what's wrong? Seriously, we were just enjoying it. And I was like, I think I can probably share on a larger scale while still making it fun. I think people are nervous to talk about heavy diagnoses or, a death sentence. But I figure if I'm able to make it just a little bit lighthearted or add some humor into it, then we can get the conversation going and people won't be as uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then translating that wedding experience to TikTok. I mean, what has it been like receiving the support and feedback from others who are watching your journey?
It's bizarre. Like sometimes I'm convinced my mom has just created like hundreds of fake accounts and is writing all these nice messages. Cause I'm like, how are people interested in this? But I think there's something interesting about seeing someone who looks very much alive and, somewhat young, 34 young, contrasted to this heavy disease that people don't associate with someone who looks like me. But I've been amazed. I always say, like, if you've lost faith in humanity, go look at my comments because I get so much support. And it's not just comments. Like I did a fundraiser on Instagram at the beginning of June and we hit $100,000 in a matter of like a week. And wow. So, yeah, people are invested. And they always say like Gen Z is like the advocate generation. Like they always have a purpose. And I think that might be true. But I also think like TikTok just allows people to connect. And maybe someone has, someone in their family dealing with ALS, or they've heard of it before. Maybe they've never heard of it before at all. But I think people are interested in different types of stories. So I've just sort of leaned into it, and I probably overshared quite a bit, but so far it's only led to good things.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, doctors typically give ALS patients a projected 2 to 5 years. I mean, knowing that, how has that shifted your perspective on life? And has it also shifted your relationship with joy?
100%. I think the 2 to 5 years is a weird thing for me to think about because I would consider myself technically in year 5 because my symptoms started 5 years ago. But since diagnosis, it's only been 1 year. So I'm never really sure where I fall there. But it definitely has made me a lot more open-eyed to joy, I think. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but like I'm always seeing good where I wasn't before. So now, when someone opens a door for me, or when someone, just does something nice, like my dog will get twisted up in my wheelchair, someone will come and help. It's just little things like that where I'm like, okay, there's a lot of good out there and people are willing to help. You just might not see it if you don't have to ask for help all the time, which now I have to. So I think it's made me happier in the weirdest way because I now just focus on the things I care about, my family, my friends, the people I care about, the things I like doing. It's simplified my life quite a bit.
Brooke, so incredible to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey. And everyone, make sure you check out Brooke's TikTok, and you can also donate to the ALS Therapy Development Institute to help with ALS research. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is so fun.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, visit advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.